If all your testing is inattention, then it's easy to get that confused with all sorts of things. But if you're also testing, are you a big picture thinker? Do you think outside of the box? Are you more empathic than most people? Are you really good at pattern recognition? If you're also testing that, then you're unlikely to misdiagnose people. Everything is connected to ADHD'ers, and that's why they can find it hard to get out of the house in the morning or whatever. If they pick something up to put it somewhere else, then that's connected to something else and to something else and to something else. And for the rest of us, that doesn't make a lot of sense, but to an ADHD brain, that's how they are in the world. There's certain tasks that will flood an ADHD's brain with dopamine and cause hyperfocus, and then there's a lot of tasks that just drain all the dopamine away, so they just can't get it done. They're creative and innovative, and we all benefit from having brains like theirs in our lives.
Welcome everyone to the Reconnect to Self podcast, the show that helps you ultimately rediscover what brings you joy. My name is Scott. I am your host for today. I'm also a filmmaker, and I'm here with my wife, Tracy, who is a counsellor of some 20 years, a breathwork instructor, and certified psychedelic assisted therapist. Hello, babe.
Hi, how are you?
I'm well. I know you're very excited about today's episode. You've been thinking about this one for a long time.
Definitely. This is my suggestion, this one.
Yes. So should I everyone knows what it is because of the title and a thumbnail, but obviously we're talking about ADHD and we have a very special guest. So I am going to do what I hope is a good intro. All right, here we go. Today we welcome a guest who's been on our list for quite a while, as I said, the wonderful Janelle Booker. Now, if you caught her episode on the imperfects, you already know Janelle has a rare gift. She takes something like ADHD, which is often misunderstood or oversimplified, and makes it make sense. She's a psychologist who runs a private practice here in Perth, a mum of 3, just like us, and someone who truly understands what it means to live in a world that doesn't always match how your brain works. We're very grateful that she has made the drive here to be with us today. For those of you who live in Perth, you know that driving north of the river, if you live south, is a bit of a big deal. So thank you, Janelle. So she joins us here in person at the dining table. Janelle, thank you for joining us.
Oh, it's my absolute pleasure. Thank you so much.
No, we're genuinely very excited to talk about this topic.
Yes, you're literally one of my most exciting people to come, because when I heard your episode on the imperfects, all of the things you said made sense to me. And I've been working with clients for years, and I was like, how did I not know this? But actually one of the things you said in that episode was that you didn't know this stuff. It wasn't in our degree, which really validated me, because I was always thinking, did I miss that class? Did I just not pay attention? Like, why do I not know this stuff? Like, my friends are telling me, my clients are telling me this stuff, but I wasn't knowing that. And so when I heard your episode, I can't tell you how many clients I've shared that with. And including in my own family, I've shared that. In fact, that's how it started. I shared it with clients that I thought, every time they sort of said, I think I might have ADHD, because as a counsellor, we hear that a lot. Mm-hmm. And I thought, well, just listen to this episode and you'll know by the end of that whether you think, that's more certain for you. And so after a little while, I listened to it again, because I thought, I probably should remind myself of what I'm sending out. And then I was like, oh my God, this is my sister. This is one of my sisters. As I was listening to it, I was like, that's her, that's her, that's her. So then I sent it to both my parents, and I said to my dad, you need to listen to this. This reminds me of my sister. Anyway, I followed him up a few times and he didn't listen. And then finally I sent it again and I rang him back. No, he messaged me. He had urgency now. He's like, you ring me, Tracy, ring me. I was like, okay, you must have listened to that episode. And so then I said, oh, how did you go? Did you think it reminded you of Meg? And he said, Meg? No, me. Reminded me of me. And I was like, oh my God, I didn't even think about my dad. But it's crazy. I mean, I've got a sister that's got undiagnosed, but we all know it. She's got Asperger's. Yeah, okay. Yeah. She's 50s now, so it wasn't diagnosed back then, but clearly we can all see that. Yeah. And I'm like, well, it has to come from somewhere, but it never occurred to me before that.
No.
So you've changed not only my clients' lives, because sometimes they'll message me back with this big page of notes and I'm like, clearly resonated for you then. But then in my own family, you've changed.
So that makes it all worthwhile to me, because I'm a bit of a homebody. I'm an introvert. And I'm a highly sensitive person, so new environments are a lot for me. Even though I might enjoy them, they're a lot. It takes a lot out of me. And so I had this whirlwind trip to Melbourne to record The Imperfects.
Yeah.
But it makes it all work, and they're gorgeous. I can't even tell you how gorgeous. And it's not just the three guys; it's a team of other three people as well behind the scenes who are just as gorgeous. So the whole experience was amazing, but it was exhausting, and it's so worth it when I hear stories like yours. Which I've heard a lot of, which is, has made it all worth it.
I'm not surprised because the amount of detail that you put in that episode, that people were like, that's me, or that's my friend, or that's my colleague, like they really could resonate with it. And the fact that it had all the things and, the challenges in that, which we'll go through, obviously on our episode as well, but it had all the gifts and all the magic of someone with the ADHD. And I think people need to hear that. They need to, know there's some beautiful things that come with, the challenges on the other side of that.
Absolutely, and I think the diagnostic criteria need to change. I think that's pretty obvious as more and more people learn about their ADHD. And I think that would actually reduce what they call over-diagnosing. So diagnosing people with ADHD who don't actually have ADHD. Because if all your testing is inattention, then it's easy to get that confused with all sorts of things. But if you're also testing, are you a big picture thinker? Do you think outside of the box? Are you more empathic than most people? And all of those sorts of things. Are you really good at pattern recognition? Are you good in a crisis? If you're also testing that, then you're unlikely to misdiagnose people.
Yeah, that's so true. And also the things that you're just saying, they're all the beautiful parts of it.
Yeah.
Like I'm thinking of some of my friends that they're really chill in a crisis. They're great.
Yeah. Absolutely. They love it.
Yes.
Their brain just gets really clear and focused and they're on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, gosh.
So how did you, because obviously you both said it wasn't really covered in uni.
Not 1 minute.
Thank you.
But
Say that again.
Yeah. In the 6 years. I did 6 years,
Oh my
not
goodness.
1 minute.
So how did you sort of come to, because I don't know if I can say you specialise in it, but you seem
do.
to. Yeah.
I do.
How did that all happen?
I was working at Curtin University, which is a large university here in Western Australia. And
You went to Curtin too, didn't you?
Yes, that was my degree.
Yep.
Oh, nice.
Curtin, yep.
Yeah, that's where I did mine as well. And I was working in the counselling service there. And I don't know, there's on any particular day, there'd be 8 to 10 psychologists working there. And so we would see the students. We were also allowed to see the staff, which was lovely too. And so we would see them in individual sessions. We'd also run group programs for them just to support their journey through university. And so they come to see us for all sorts of things, just as you can imagine, anxiety, depression, relationships, blah, blah, blah. This one particular semester, I can't remember if it was 5 or 6 ADHD'ers as individual clients. And they were so smart. They were so motivated. They really wanted this, which is quite unusual in uni students. Like uni students oftentimes are like, whatever.
Yeah. How can I get out of this?
That's right. Is it going to be in the test? Whatever, Whereas these were really switched on people.
Yep.
They really wanted to progress through their degree, and they just kept tripping up, semester after semester. And so, they were brave enough, because not many 20-year-olds want to come and work with a psychologist. They were brave enough to come, week after week, and we would work on their goals, which were always around procrastination, getting started, overcoming obstacles, etc., time management. And we worked really hard. And at the end of the semester, they were all exactly where they'd been in previous semesters. And so I decided that maybe bringing them together as a group, they could help each other. With me not being the expert, but for them to be able to, because they all had, and this is what ADHDers do, they're generally very smart. They'd all come up with strategies to overcome some of their, challenges, but not all of them. So I thought if we bring them all together, maybe that will sort of complete the picture for them. And so I asked my manager if I could do that, and I'd never written a course before, and she said, yeah, go ahead, just go do it. Why wouldn't you do that? And then I realised I didn't really know anything about ADHD, except what everyone thinks about ADHD.
Yes.
And so then I started to research it, And then I started to realise, same as you, that person in my family, and that person in my family, and that person in my family. I realised that I come from a family of ADHDers. And even though, I was just thinking about it this morning, one of my siblings was diagnosed with ADHD and dyslexia as a child, but the family chose to ignore the ADHD part because he's so well behaved. He was a really good kid. And so they focused on the dyslexia side of things and didn't really, well, back then, it was, it was
limited.
decades ago, not much, there was no internet. You couldn't just find things out the way that you can now. So then I had to learn all about ADHD and then started running the group, and it was, you can't even imagine what a delight it is to run a group of ADHDers, because ADHDers, they're smart, they're kind, kinder than most people, funny, they just all want to help each other, and the growth and learning that comes when you're used to feeling less than, and you're in a group of just impressive, amazing humans, just they learn to love themselves, which is pretty awesome. And they also start to succeed in ways that they hadn't before. So they start to build strategies and habits that they've really struggled to do in the past because they've got each other and they're supporting each other. So that was the origins of it. Yep. And then because I was doing that, then my fellow psychologists, if they had a student come through who was an ADHD, they'd send them to me. And so that's how I started to specialise in ADHD. And now I would say 95% of my clients are ADHDers.
I'm not surprised, because as soon as someone would hear that someone specialises in something that someone thinks that they have, you're that person. Yeah. Because you're going to normalise that for them. You're going to help them with the strategies. I think you would be a really safe person for them to go to. They would definitely want that. Yeah. Yeah. And that group, because I like doing group work as well.
Do you? Yeah.
Yeah. We run retreats, and actually run 2 retreats. One's a relationship one where there's no group work. It's all just between the couple. And then the other one is my individual retreat, which I run with Scott. Yeah. And we love that because just the energy of the group, we don't do anything in terms of, you have to share this, but it naturally happens. They want to support each other. Like, it's just magic.
Yeah. It's crazy because we just did one recently.
This weekend.
And I wasn't going to say this weekend because these get released. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. The internet knows. And we literally say you don't have to share anything, but just being in the group as soon as they reach that level of comfort, which does not take very long. Yeah. Like I would say after the first night, so the next morning they're willing to start sharing, and then as soon as one person does, then that sort of allows everyone else to feel a bit more comfortable to do it. And it's very powerful.
Yes, and there was, there might have been more people, but there was one person on our retreat who identified as being ADHD and things, and she was beautiful. And at the very end on our last day, we were sitting around having our last final lunch, and she'd been mucking around with tarot cards that morning and asking everyone a number and doing tarot cards and writing things down, scribbling like a madwoman. And when it came to the lunch, she said, "Can I read you all the tarot cards that I did for you all?" And so she went around the table, and bless her little heart, she kept stopping and saying, "Sorry, I won't take too long, and I won't, if it's boring you," and she just kept apologising. And as a group, we all said, "No, we are really enjoying this. This is lovely. The fact that you've, giving reflections of what you've noticed in people's, energies and behaviours over the weekend, plus the card that you've just pulled for them." And we actually said afterwards, we want to do that every time. Of having everyone go around the table and have those comments. I've got tarot cards as well, so we could pull the cards as well. But I just love that she naturally closed that space for everybody, gave them that insight, made everyone feel really special. Yet the whole time she's apologising.
Yeah, that's a really common one. And that's something that they'll pick up when my clients do that in sessions, in therapy sessions. And I always do it gently because, ADHDers struggle with shame, like very shame prone. And I just think that's a natural thing already. But then, she feels like she's too much, and people have probably given her that impression that she's too much. She talks too much maybe. I'm not saying she does, but that's maybe the message that she's got. So then she senses herself and, is constantly monitoring.
I think she even said something like that over the weekend. Because she is a big personality, like a big, lovable personality that everyone is drawn to.
Yes.
But I got the impression she
said it. She said it at the lunch. She said, my normal friends would be, sort of shifting their seats by now and showing impatience. Yeah. And then I said, kind of look around like no one's doing that. Like everyone's really happy. And I even said to her, I've allowed an hour for this lunch. We've got plenty of time. You do not need to rush. You don't need to,
Because it wasn't just the tarot card. She'd actually written notes about everyone and gave these really insightful, beautiful sentiments about what she'd noticed about each individual person over the course of the 2 days. And it was beautiful. It was like a highlight of the weekend.
And it was nice because then everybody at the table wanted to give her the feedback too. So it was nice.
So she just created connection, didn't she, between everyone. And this is a really interesting thing when you look at the ADHD brain, is it tends to be a brain of connection. Like everything is connected to ADHD'ers. And that's why they, can find it hard to get out of the house in the morning or whatever. If they pick something up to put it somewhere else, then that's connected to something else and to something else and to something else. And for the rest of us, that doesn't make a lot of sense. But to an ADHD brain, that's how they are in the world, and they're connected to other people that they don't even know. There's a lot of empathy and compassion for other people's suffering. They're very much about social justice. It's not just the people that they know and care about that they care about. They care about everybody. And so that's one thing that I see in ADHD brains is it's a brain of connection.
Yeah, as you're saying that, different clients are popping into my head. I'm like, that client that stopped because they saw someone nearly going to jump off a bridge and spent half along with them.
Yeah.
All these things that they'll just do above and beyond what other people would even notice.
Absolutely. Yeah. And have those big feelings about it too. It's not something that they can just ignore.
Yeah, switch off or yeah. One of the things you did on the Imperfects episode was you took people through what a morning might look like for people.
That was very powerful.
Do you think you could do that for us as well, for our listeners? Because I think
sure.
that's a really powerful exercise.
I felt like I didn't do that very well on the Imperfects. So let's see if I can do it better.
Oh, well, I was impressed, so let's go.
Okay, so if you're, and I should have said this up front, these are just massive generalizations, and every ADHDer is different. Every brain is different. And even if you had identical twins who both had ADHD, their brains would be different. So there's just a generalization. Not every ADHDer struggles like this, but a lot do. So if you're an ADHDer, you're likely to struggle with falling asleep at night. And also there's a thing called revenge procrastination. So they like staying up at night when the house is quiet and still, and they feel like that's their time, the first time in the day where they can just be themselves. So they'll often go to bed very late, and then they will find it really hard to wake up. And some of them sleep so soundly that they might sleep through 12 alarms.
Wow.
And so they might wake up panicky. They might also wake up with a lot of overthinking and dread about the day, like how they're going to get through the day. But by the time they get themselves out of bed, they might then stagger to the bathroom and hop in the shower, and they might get distracted in the shower. So already they're late because they haven't been able to get up, or they've slept through alarms and they're feeling panicky. But a lot of ADHDers can't keep their focus on the thing that they are supposed to be doing. Like that just disappears, and they're very taken to whatever is in front of them. So if they're in the shower and enjoying the shower, or there's a song on or music on or whatever it is, or they're replaying something in their mind, maybe then they've spent 15 minutes in the shower instead of 5 minutes. And again, not aware of time. A lot of people with ADHD are not aware of time passing. It's just a different brain type. And so then they might scream out of the shower, noticing what the time is, feeling even more panicky, go into the kitchen to make themselves a coffee or something, and then see something on the counter that is pretty interesting, and again lose track of time and get lost in that, and then again get panicky, and so on and so on and so on. The whole morning can go like that. Maybe someone's screaming at them now because now they've let other people down, or the kids are going to be late, or whatever it is. Now they can't find their keys, and so then it goes into overdrive. The keys. Where did I put my keys? People usually know where their phone is, but their keys, if they're not in a good habit. And so then they're, tearing through the house trying to find their keys. When they finally manage to get out of the house, and by the way, they probably left the washing in the washing machine, and, and it hasn't been dry, so now they're picking through the dirty washing and trying to find something that is, bearable for everybody to be around for the rest of the day. So this is oftentimes how much time, energy, stress, and hassle
that does sound very stressful.
Yeah, it does,
So does
doesn't
that
it?
like raise their anxiety right at the start of the day?
Yeah, and it's used up all their energy already.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then if you add in, it's not just ADHDers, it's most of us, if they've been scrolling on their phone in the morning and they've used up all their dopamine, I mean, that just makes everything even harder.
There is a link with the dopamine. Do you want to quickly talk about that?
Yeah.
This was a bit that really fascinated me, actually, in what you said. Yeah, I was really like, holy moly, that makes so much sense now as to why people feel like they're lazy or they're unmotivated.
Yeah. Well, I don't know the genesis of it, why it is this, but ADHDers tend to have inconsistent access to dopamine. And by that I mean sometimes they have a lot of it, and they call that hyperfocus. So a lot of people might have heard of hyperfocus. And a lot of times they have very little access to dopamine. And this is, like taking screens and other things out of the picture. But dopamine is required when we want to engage in a goal-oriented task. So, for example, getting out of the house in the morning or brushing your teeth or doing the dishes or completing an assignment, whatever it is, vacuuming the floor. If we don't have dopamine, we can't get it done. No one can. And there was some research, I don't think I said this previously, but there was some research done on these, and it's lab animals, so this is cruel, but they did some experiments where I think they genetically modified the mice so they didn't have any access to dopamine at all, and one by one they experimented with various mice, and they placed the mouse here and the food 6 inches away from the mouse, and every mouse died of starvation.
I heard this recently.
Yeah.
I picked it up on a pod. Well, I listened to lots of different podcasts, but I literally heard that bit of research recently. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Because if you don't have dopamine, you can't activate yourself and achieve a goal. And the goal is feeding myself. A lot of ADHDers struggle to feed themselves. And it doesn't make sense to people who don't struggle with dopamine that would be the case. And so there's certain tasks that will flood an ADHDer's brain with dopamine and cause hyperfocus. And then there's a lot of tasks that just drain all the dopamine away. So they just can't get it done. And so at university, that tends to be things like assignments, coming to uni, all of that sort of thing.
And is really the hyper-focus ones anything creative or exciting? Like, is that kind of how it works?
Yeah, so there seem to be themes to it. So one is urgency. So a lot of ADHDers will be very familiar with not being able to do something until it's the last minute. So they, always did their assignments at the last minute, or a project, or even cleaning the house. They have to invite someone over in order to get the dopamine, to get the house cleaned. So there's urgency. There's interest. So if they're interested in something, then they can get flooded with dopamine. So think about computer games for a lot of ADHDers. If it's something that they're interested in, you can't shift there. It can be. When you're in hyperfocus, there could be a bomb going off and they won't hear it. Like, it's just that they're really, really focused. For some people, they choose a career that is in their interest area, in which case that's a good match. Another one is novelty, so new, anything that's new, because ADHD brains tend to be curious brains. So anything that they haven't seen before, they'll have some dopamine so that they can focus on that. Yeah. The other one that I've identified is when they're doing something for somebody else. They're doing a favour for somebody else. So let's say you can't clean your house, but your friend is struggling, you'll be flooded with dopamine. You can go and clean their house.
Wow.
That's true.
Yeah.
I keep thinking of Kelly the whole way through this. One of my friends, because one time I went to her house and I helped her fold 6 baskets of laundry.
Yeah, that's a common one.
And I know that because I hurt my back afterwards, leaning over the table. But I remember thinking, gosh, she just gets overwhelmed with everything.
Yeah.
But yet this is a person that doesn't stop. She's constantly on the go. She's a teacher.
Yep.
Actually, she put on our group chat the other day all the things that she did cooking-wise to avoid something else that she didn't want to do.
Because she probably likes cooking.
Yeah, she does like cooking.
An interest of hers.
She does. But even clients where it's added lots of pressure in their relationships when they can't get the tasks done that are kind of on their plate. So I've had previous clients again with the washing where it's been piled up and the husband's coming home and he's got, he's been at work all day and been really busy and the kitchen's all full of clutter, and yes, there might be a beautiful meal on the table because she likes cooking, but everything else is pretty messy, and they can feel really overwhelmed, and then they start feeling like I'm being lazy, and it's just, again, when I heard that dopamine drop, I thought that makes so much sense, because they often are thinking, well, how come everyone else can do these things and I can't manage to get the washing done or the kitchen sorted? Or even sometimes I've heard of husbands saying, my wife, she cooked this lovely dinner, but then the rubbish was right next to her on the bench. Why couldn't she just put that in the bin? It's right there. Just little things like that. But for them, that seems really hard. But for the husband or the wife, whichever way it is, that doesn't have ADHD, for them, that just makes no sense. They just think, why aren't you seeing that?
Yeah, and then it leads the other partner to make assumptions about that they don't care, or, I don't know what other assumptions they're making. That's a really hard one.
Or that they are being lazy. Yeah. They do think, well, why don't you put that in the bin? It's right there, Yeah. And so even the podcast from The Imperfects, I've sent out to partners of people with ADHD to kind of go, hey, this is what they're struggling with, and this is why. So that way they can maybe work with them to have different understandings of, who can do what and why, and
And I loved on that episode where Ryan was talking about how his partner, Jem, is she the cook? I think she loves to cook.
Yes.
Yep.
And then he doesn't mind cleaning up. So that's a lovely example of the two of them working together.
Yeah.
But if we expect everyone to be equal, this is a problem for ADHDers, especially when they are married or partnered up with neurotypical partners. I always think that it's wise to delegate out things that your brain doesn't do well, and then to do something for the other person that your brain is good at.
Yeah.
And it may not be equivalent in time, but maybe it helps the relationship if it's not required that everybody does the same amount of things. If that makes sense.
Yeah. And I think also, even with our friends, we've been down south a few times and watched one of our couple friends not argue, but I joked one time and said, you always say that he's got ADHD. You should look up all the the things that impact a relationship around that. Anyway, so I did. I Googled it and read it out for them. And every time I did a different point, the wife was nodding, yes, he does that. Yes, he does that. So I think even sometimes just getting more information to go, that's their brain. That's not him ignoring me, or that's not him trying to cut me off or, shut me down. That's actually, he can't focus for that long, or he wants to get that conversation over and done with,
Yeah, absolutely. I think that understanding is crucial, not only for ADHDers, but for the people who live with them and the people who work with them as well, so that we can all be on a similar page. We're never going to be on the same page. It then also requires patience, even though we understand why that person is interrupting us all the time.
Yeah.
Then we've got to sort of do what we can to manage our emotions about that.
Or even when you're saying before about they do things at the last minute.
Yeah.
My same friend, she was on some sort of committee and she was organising something, and she would tell me that the panic of people around her going, you haven't done that yet, you haven't got that sorted. And she's like, it's fine, I know what's going on, I'm under control. And they were almost overstepping, trying to do it just to tick that off and make sure it's done, even though she was quite calm about it and she did get it all done. She knows her process. But people around her were the ones freaking out.
Absolutely. And I, when I was working at Curtin, one of our colleagues, the way that her brain worked was she would prefer for everybody to go home, and then so she could then get all of the paperwork done and do notes, etc. But it wasn't really acceptable because we were all expected to, for self-care reasons, not to work longer than what we were expected to work. So, there is space for just understanding and flexibility, and so that you can find a system that works, and maybe it works for a while and then it doesn't work, and then just, having that ongoing conversation. Checking in with each other. And it is okay to get frustrated with each other. Anyone who's been married knows it, or even if you're not married, knows how frustrating it is to share a life with another human. But it's good to just keep checking in with each other. And,
it's regardless of what different brains are like. It's just being around humans. Actually, there's a relationship expert guru called Stan Talkin, and my colleague and I went to some training in Sydney, and the first thing he said was, people are annoying. Like he just named it, and so it's about adapting.
Including us,
yeah,
right?
including us. Yep, all of us, everyone. I'm annoying to somebody. I'm annoying to
Yep.
you for sure, Scott. He always tells me about me humming when he's watching TV.
Tracy has so many intricacies, there are so many quirks in your life.
But I own them.
Yeah.
And as a husband, I learned to love them.
Yeah.
Which makes it far easier for me to accept them because
Yeah.
I'm like, well, that's what makes her who she is, and I love her.
And I think that's a really good point, Scott. And this is something that maybe the person on your retreat doesn't realise, and what a lot of ADHDers don't realise is, they bring an energy.
Oh,
That
they
I
do.
heard you say that about her,
Yeah,
she
yeah.
just brings an energy. And we all need that. We
Yeah.
all need some people to bring the energy.
Yeah.
And then sometimes maybe it's a bit much, but a lot of the times it's just enough. And I think a lot of ADHDers feel a lot of shame about being too much. But I think ADHD...
That's the magic.
It's the magic that they bring, absolutely. And they're creative and innovative and, we all benefit from
Yeah.
having brains like theirs in our lives.
Yes, I totally agree. I think they're so warm and, like you said, out the box with some of the
Yeah.
things.
Yeah.
I think that they're just beautiful people. They're very people-orientated people, aren't they?
Not all of them.
Oh, not all of them?
Not
Okay.
all of them. Because not all ADHDers are the
Same,
same.
yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, we haven't even talked about the different types
Yeah.
yet.
Mhm.
Do you want to set some parameters of
Sure.
or definitions of because I know I think you said there's now 3
Yeah, there's
types.
3. I'm not a big believer in those 3, but they're the official ones.
Right.
They're the psychiatric diagnosis ones. So the 3 that they and they changed this. I don't know how many years ago. There used to be ADD and ADHD, if you remember.
I do remember that.
And then they changed it to ADHD with 3 subtypes. And so you have ADHD predominantly inattentive, and that was the ADD of the past. So people who don't identify as struggling with hyperactivity and impulsivity. And then you have the hyperactive and impulsive type. And then you have the combined type, which is all 3 of those aspects. So inattentive, hyperactive and impulsive. And I think a lot of people who are diagnosed with inattentive type also struggle with overthinking, like a hyperactive brain. And this is really, really common. So I think brains are too complex to just put people neatly into one of 3 boxes, really, in my experience.
Makes
So when you
perfect
work with
sense.
people, are you kind of going through the different types and seeing what resonates for...
Not
Okay,
really.
no,
I
okay.
don't think that's all that helpful, those
Yeah.
3, just clinically, because everybody is different in terms of, their particular brand of ADHD.
Yeah.
Yeah. One thing that I also see in my therapy room is that ADHDers will, this is again a generalisation, will either be on one end of the continuum in terms of awareness of other people's, behaviour, motivation, what makes people tick, or the other. And so this end might be the autism sort of end where they've got a bit of mind blindness, or they're not picking up all the social cues.
Right. Yeah.
And that can be, quite a few ADHDers, but there are a lot also down this end who are just picking up too much, and that's the high sensitivity trait. And so they will tend to be people who don't really focus on themselves very much and very, very much focused on everybody else, and that has its pluses and minuses as well. So, and then there's everything in between, there's all the gradations in between. And so, it's not as simple as fitting into just an inattentive or an impulsivity and hyperactivity
And
box.
I heard that there's a really strong link between ADHD and autism, which up until a couple of years ago I actually didn't know that it was so high.
Yeah.
There's a guy in our office that does assessments, and he said it was like 70%. So I'm not sure if you think it's that high, but he was...
I think that I don't know currently. I don't think they know ADHD population statistics.
I don't think they do either, because everyone every 2 seconds is telling me that they...
Well, because, it's only maybe 6 or 7 years ago that it was commonly, expressed that for every girl that had ADHD, there were 10 boys. And that was 6 years ago. So when you see the population statistics, they haven't changed. So they haven't doubled those numbers now that they realise that girls are just as likely as boys women as men, to have ADHD. So there's a lot more ADHDers than the population statistics show.
Right.
So I guess there's a lot of we don't know. We don't know how many people are ADHDers. But I think a lot of autistic people have ADHD, and so it might be around 80% of autistic people also have ADHD,
Right.
but I don't think it's
The other way
reverse
around.
is true.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then I also heard that there's other conditions that can be quite commonly associated as well. And again, I learned this all from my clients. This is not coming from anywhere else. But with the sensitivity, the rejection syndrome, is it called?
Oh, yeah, Rejection Sensitive Dysphoria, they call it RSD. And that term was coined by a psychiatrist in America, William Dodson. And some psychiatrists don't agree with it. They don't believe that it's a thing. But really what that refers to is that shame proneness, and ADHD and a lot of autistic people as well have this RSD in which they feel criticised very easily. So it's perceived rejection, it's not actual rejection. So they will feel really unbearable pain if someone says no, or they don't respond to their text, or they do criticise them or reject them. But the dysphoria part of RSD means unbearable.
Right.
So their experience of that is just so huge. And in my experience, they'll either ADHDers will either plummet into despair and can have suicidal thoughts very, very quickly in response to, and it's like that. Or they can go right up into rage. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
wow.
As a response. And so, it's part of emotional regulation, which is one of the key features of ADHD that doesn't get even assessed anymore.
Okay.
It used to be, but I think in the 1970s the psychiatrists took it out of the diagnostic criteria, and I think it was because it's too hard to measure.
Right.
But for more than a third of ADHDers, they say emotional regulation is the most difficult aspect of having ADHD.
I can understand that from what I see,
Yeah.
and I love that you call them ADHDers, because
Yes,
that's
I
just
wanted to ask about this.
it's such a lovely term. And I said to you earlier that I think I want to be part of that group when I hear that
it's
term.
a cool
So
group. I didn't coin that, but the reason that I try not to say people with ADHD, because it sounds like people with diabetes or people with depression, and depression is a disorder, and ADHD, I don't see it as it can be a disorder, but it's not like diabetes, which is a disorder, and we want to really treat that and get it back to normal. But ADHD is not like that. It's just a difference. It's a different brain, and that's why I call them ADHDers.
Yeah, I love that. Actually, one of my friends who's also a therapist, her son's got ADHD, and I love that even from really early on, she's always just said, well, that's your brain and that's how you work. And it's just so matter of fact in her house. Yeah. And that even when her, her daughter does something who's younger, and he knows that, he's not as on top of that as what she is, he goes, I've just got a different brain. And he just owns it. And it's because of how she's educated him and just normalised it all. I just think it's so beautiful that he knows he's got these different gifts and skills, and that his sister has got her own different gifts and skills.
Yeah. I mean, that's what we're aiming for, because to me that's the truth.
It is the truth.
The truth.
And I agree.
Yeah.
He's a mischief maker, that one.
He's a big guy.
But that's what draws people into him. He's got all those beautiful, lovely, qualities. So,
well, Trevor Noah, who's a stand-up comedian.
Yeah, I've heard of him.
He's been diagnosed with ADHD recently, and I heard him speaking about he thinks all of the stand-up comedians he knows are ADHDers. And to me it makes perfect sense, because ADHD brains are really fast, and those guys, they're fast, and women, they're really fast. Their brains work really fast, and they connect things that other people don't connect. And so to me, it is a really valid brain type. It's not just stand-up comedians. I think a lot of the actors in Hollywood are ADHDers, and there's.
Why do you reckon that is? Is that because of the hyper focus that they can just zone in on their character, or? I
think it's more that they thrive on novelty. Every day is different. Big emotions, connecting things. Yeah. All of that sort of thing. And those sorts of things would freak the rest of us out. A lot of us need to know what's coming. We sort of like to relatively do the same types of things. But ADHDers thrive on not knowing what's coming next.
Yeah.
Like their brain is just really...
So when you work with obviously lots of different people, what are some of the common parts of, because there's probably people listening who are going, oh, okay, yep, I'm getting that. I get it. What are the common issues that come up in life? Is it mostly around relationships? Is it work? Is it, I guess, friendships? Or I guess it's everything. But is there common themes that people sort of struggle with? Because one of the things I wanted to do with this episode is to talk about, because I think we are in a place now. It's interesting. I'm going to ramble on this question, so just apologies in advance. The 6 years thing blew my mind because that's only 2019. But I do feel like we have come a long way, and it is a little bit more openly discussed and everyone understands it better. But, I mean, we can just pick people in our lives. There's still people who struggle every single day.
Yeah.
And so I guess my long-winded question is, what are the parts that they're struggling with, and how can you start to turn that around and help them?
That's a massive question.
Yeah, it's massive.
Yeah. That's all right. I'll try.
Or maybe I can pinpoint it into maybe relationships or friendships. Like, because one of the things I remember you saying was around texting and how
that's my sister for sure.
That's a common one.
Yeah, not texting back and the pressure of, oh my God, I got all these text messages I need to respond to. And then the guilt and the shame of not doing that, and then thinking you're a bad friend. And so maintaining friendships, I imagine, can be tricky.
Maintaining friendships is often tricky for multiple reasons, and everyone is different. That is a really common one of feeling overwhelmed. So you use the word overwhelmed. That's a really common experience for ADHDers and highly sensitive people. I don't really talk about autistic people because that's not my area of experience. But feeling overwhelmed, but then there's perfectionism. We haven't even talked about perfectionism. ADHDers struggle with perfectionism. They're protecting themselves from that shame. Like they've got to do everything right. And
is that because they don't want the negative feedback of?
Well, it's the RSD, the Rejection Sensitive Dysphoria, and it's the feeling too much or not enough. It's all of that. It's protecting, and it's the shame proneness. I think it's all. I think that it's just genetically based, is biologically based originally, but then it probably turns into this perfectionistic sort of. So then they might. A lot of them will have difficulties with reading or spelling, etc., or understanding. Like they might read too quickly and miss the point or whatever it is, and then respond to something that doesn't quite make sense. So then they're really, sensitive to that, and they don't want to make a mistake, or they don't want to say the wrong thing, or because their minds are so, they can see 20 options all at once and they're all connected. Yeah. For the rest of us, we might see a text prompt and we go, oh, yeah, sure. Whereas they might just go, oh, but if that happens, and then they don't know how to respond to it. So there's that as well.
Yeah.
Gosh,
there's a lot.
And again, I'm just like, the amount of times we've said about our friend, she doesn't respond properly, or how come she doesn't spell check that? Because it doesn't make sense now, that sentence. We're like, Kelly, what does that mean?
Yeah, what did you mean by that? Yeah. And that's why, when I work with ADHDs, I always say, I don't care about spelling, I'll get the gist of what you mean. Because otherwise they spend hours drafting a one-line email.
Oh, God.
Yeah. That's what I mean. Delegate that sort of thing out for someone else, because if your brain just keeps getting stuck on that, ask someone else to do that for you, and then you can do something else for them. So that can be a real problem, so getting texts. The other thing is that, maybe ADHD is a bit more intuitive and they base things on how they're feeling rather than, cognitive sort of thinking stuff. So if you say, Scott, if I'm an ADHD and you say, hey, on Saturday afternoon, do you want to catch up? We'll go for a walk along the beach. They might think, I don't know what I'll be feeling like on Saturday. Like, how am I supposed to know whether I want to do that or not,
Absolutely.
So there's it's complex. Yeah. It's really complex.
It's funny what you were saying, because I went to the gym this morning, and for regular listeners, they'll know my gym is, call it the old man's gym. It's not weights. It's like stretching and just
fascia
and stuff. Yeah,
the
fascia. The myofascial system, I banged on. We actually did a whole episode about it. Our very first guest on this podcast, his name is Greg, and he has ADHD, and he teaches the class. And I said to him, you were coming on the show today. And so he's definitely going to listen to this.
Hi, Greg.
And,
There you go. He's got a shout out.
But we offer, because he is hilarious, right? So we do the same routine all the time. But he also treats it like a bit of a stand-up comedy show because he has an audience, and it's funny to watch.
It's a captive audience.
Yeah, because we do the same exercises in the same order. I know it. Everyone else in the class knows it. But Greg will be distracted with funny things that he is about to say. So he doesn't know what's coming up next. And he often looks at us to go, okay, oh, yeah, we're doing that one. And it's funny, like... and he acknowledges it, and it's a big part of who he is.
Yeah.
But
and it adds something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the way, and you know,
It'd be boring without that if you just do
somebody
the
will
same.
say something. Somebody will say something, and within a second, his brain has connected. Bang, 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 and then he delivers a joke.
Yep.
And I'm like, I don't even know how you got to that joke so fast.
Yeah.
Like, it's incredible.
That's what the comedian, like you were saying,
Absolutely.
about the comedians.
And a lot of ADHDers are masking because as you're talking to them, they're going, because they already know what you're going to say because their brains work that fast.
Yeah.
And they're just being polite. And sometimes their mask will slip and I can see them sort of do this to me. And I don't take offence. I go, oh, I know. Like I'm taking ages to get to that to my point, and they just laugh. But most of them don't show that to me.
Right.
They're masking a lot of the time, just waiting for us all to catch up.
Yeah.
Do you know what's funny? We have a friend, and I just thought that was Rob. I never thought anything about that, but now we know he's got ADHD. But at the time, you'd be doing something, and Rob would just get up and start cleaning the table or start doing things. And I always just put it down to he's got kids and we're busy and there's always something to be interrupted. And then after a while, when the kids have gotten a bit older and they're not interrupting so much, I'm like, oh, he's the same. Like it was just, in my head, that was just who he was.
Yeah.
And now I realise, oh, that's why he was the way.
Hyperactivity.
Yeah. He's
But
great
again,
for a
it's
clean-up.
having that understanding. Because if you didn't understand, you would think, oh, is he trying to get rid of us? Like,
It does look like that. We know him so well that we go, oh, that's just him, and his wife rolls his eyes and her eyes and goes, that's him as well.
Yeah.
But no, you might
But
think
all
that
comes from
that he's
understanding.
wrapping you up,
Yeah.
ready to get you out of his house. But no, it's just he can't sit there for that long.
No.
Another topic I really wanted to talk about, because I'm passionate. I want to do a whole separate episode on the education system. And I heard some of the stuff that you were saying about schools. And I think we should dive into that a little bit, because I imagine kids, whether they're diagnosed or undiagnosed, will struggle with the current schooling system. So my belief is now they created this schooling system so long ago that it is so irrelevant. And I'm seeing it with our youngest daughter. She's 10.
Nearly 10.
Nearly 10. 10 next month. Do you see how often she whinges about how boring school is?
Yeah, she does say it's boring all the time.
Like,
and she's only
it
10.
is,
Yeah,
and
like
I get it. I can't even defend it. I'm going like, yeah, it's totally boring. So with a kid who has ADHD, I imagine add times that by 100 or 1,000.
Absolutely.
And they
having
still
to
don't
sit
seem
still.
to be doing anything about it.
Yeah.
And not talk. This whole thing of not talking, when you're like, well, if you're on task, if you're doing something or other, why can't you have a chat with somebody? If you're not being disruptive, like even in workplaces, it drives me crazy.
Yeah.
Why does it need to be like a library?
I don't think, and I think, there's education experts who agree that this whole education system doesn't work for any child.
I would agree
I
with
would
that.
agree with that. Yeah.
It doesn't work for anyone.
Yeah.
But ADHD students, this is a generalisation as well, but will often, they'll pretty much cruise through primary school. Unless they've got a severe learning difficulty, they'll usually cruise through pretty well. Oftentimes they're highly intelligent and they don't have to do very much. And even if they're drifting off and they're not paying attention, they can get their work done. There's a lot of external structure in primary school. So the teacher's telling them what to do. Parents are saying, have you got your reading book? All of that sort of
Yes,
stuff.
reminders.
Yeah. Then they go to high school. And what I consistently hear, because I'm always interested in my clients telling me their school experience, because that to me is part of the diagnostic.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people come to me not knowing if they've got ADHD. But a lot of them will say, I never got maths. I was terrible at maths. Now, not all ADHDers, some are maths teachers, but generally speaking, ADHDers struggle with maths. That's my experience of it. But I loved, and then it will often be art or history or whatever it is. And in those subjects, they'll pay a lot of attention. They'll love it. They'll get a lot out of it. But the subjects that aren't interesting, they will find it very, very hard to pay attention, to do the homework, etc. And then they might be misunderstood by teachers. This happens quite a lot. So, I said before, an ADHD mind is an inquisitive mind. It's a curious mind. And so they might start asking questions, in history class that the teacher might interpret as them being a smart aleck. Oh. And so then they get sent out of the room or something like that, when actually this was just like a really curious, interesting thought that came into their mind. So they can get misunderstood a lot of the time.
Yeah. So what do you tell parents who can see their child is struggling? They've got essentially forced into this system that's not working for their child. Like, I know there might not be an answer to this question, but how do you get through it?
I actually don't really that's not my area, so I don't really work so much with parents. I've worked with teens a lot, not with younger kids.
Yeah, okay.
And I just encourage parents to be on the side of their child and just to recognise what the limitations are, and to also support. ADHDs will need more what we call scaffolding than other teens will need. Because of the lack of dopamine, etc. A lot of parents don't want their child to go on medication, which I can understand. Each family needs to make up their own mind about that. So a lot of these teens are really struggling because a lot of the teens that I work with come from, like academically successful families. And even if it's not explicitly said, the expectation is high for them to succeed through high school, etc. And so it's hard work. But the families who really gather around their child and sort of support them, their child does a lot better than the parents who don't do that.
Do you see, and it was popping in my head just then, there's about 3 people in my friend group where they have had to really watch the food that their children are eating, and when I think about that, they're all the ones that suspect their child has ADHD. And I've heard again with the dopamine, of the reward system and things like that. Do you see that as a common part of ADHD?
I would love to know more about the nutrition, and that's my little special interest at the moment, that I'm doing more research in, no, just personal research. I'm not conducting research. I don't really know about the foods, etc. The thing that we haven't talked about is that oftentimes people will have other physical conditions as well as ADHD, and so some will have POTS. So that stands for postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome. That's why we call it POTS, because it's a lot less of a mouthful.
It's wordy.
So that's an autonomic nervous system disorder that I think it's particularly young women who get diagnosed with it. I don't know if that means that young men don't get it as well, but, they're just not saying so. I'm not sure. But so people who have POTS then have to really watch how much water they drink. They've got to have more salt. They've got to manage they're being exposed to heat, etc., because they get dizzy, they can faint.
Oh, wow.
So that's really hard to keep going to school and there's a lot of fatigue. So that's a really, quite a common one for, not overly, it's not like 90% of ADHDers, but it is highly correlated with being neurodivergent.
So they manage that with their water and their minerals?
Salt, and it's all about blood, pressure, because it's, their blood pressure drops when they stand up.
Right.
Which can make going to school really hard.
Gosh.
But, don't listen to me because I'm not a doctor. You need to get medical advice, if you think you've got POTS.
Right. Well, I mean, we're supposed to drink. I've got a friend that's an Ayurvedic practitioner, and she recommended ages ago for me to have Celtic salt in the morning with a bit of lemon juice and things. I've been doing that for years now.
Yeah.
And we're not having the right type of minerals in our diet, so it doesn't surprise me that they need, extra things if they're suffering in that way. Yeah. What else could they do to support themselves, physically or through food or?
Yeah. Well, a lot of ADHDers, I'm seeing so many women. I don't know if that's your experience as well.
It actually is, yeah.
Yeah. So many women are getting diagnosed at the moment. A lot will have really bad anxiety and depression the week before their period starts. So it seems to be that they know that there's an interaction between estrogen and progesterone and ADHD. So that's worth looking into if people are struggling in that way.
I didn't know that was a link between that.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
See, I'm learning things as well.
I don't know why there's a link, and that's what I'm always looking for, is what is the link, because ADHDers are much more likely to have allergies, autoimmune disorders, PCOS, endometriosis, asthma, eczema, epilepsy. Like the list just goes on and on. Chronic fatigue syndrome, fibromyalgia. It goes on and on, but I don't know what the common link is, and I've always been very interested in that.
No, you're going to make me interested in that.
Yeah. Well, I listened to a podcast, ADHD Chatter, which a lot of ADHDers will be familiar with, and Alex interviewed a woman called Sarah Worley over in the UK, and she runs 4 or 5 clinics up for ADHDers where they treat it non-medically, and so mainly with nutrition. So they're looking at zinc deficiency, copper overload, and methylation.
I've
issues.
heard about this methylation
methylation
stuff.
issues, and so I'm doing research into that myself with
That's
me.
fascinating.
At the moment, to sort of see what comes out of that.
Have they
Because
got any initial findings, or have they got any?
there's a lot of research on this, but they haven't done randomised clinical trials, so that's the problem. But there's a lot of research out of the US in terms of treating people just with these simple. Because I have known since I started working with ADHDers that iron deficiency is really common, that magnesium deficiency is common, that zinc, vitamin D, I think we're all vitamin D deficient. So there's these common sort of deficiencies, can be B12 as well. And if you are deficient in those, it affects your neurotransmitters, including dopamine. And so, so...
That fascinates me, because my friend that I was just referring to, she's had many iron infusions. In fact, they gave her a double iron infusion previously.
Yeah.
So,
Some people's are down to like a 3 or a 6.
Wow.
Yeah.
I
their
didn't
ferritin
know that
levels.
that was a link. That's
Yeah.
fascinating.
Yeah.
Wow.
Joint hypermobility is another
Yes,
one.
I did know that hypermobility was one.
All sorts of things.
Yeah. And then another client has also told me, I don't know what the technical name is, but it's like object blindness. She said that was
Object permanence?
Yes. She said that for her, she gave me an example of if she was making a smoothie every morning for breakfast and then her husband put the blender away, the next day she forgot that she had a smoothie every day and she would just move on to toast or something.
Yeah. That is a really common thing. It's not, people have called it object permanence. I suppose in that way that is about right for object permanence, and people do that with friends as well.
That's what she said. She said if they're not in my awareness,
then people forget.
She said if they're on a group chat, it's okay, but if they're not on a group chat where it's pinging or it's whatever, then they're not even going to be on her mind unless she sees them again.
And I just find that fascinating because, I heard this thing recently on the the TED radio hour it was, and it was this psychologist from America, and she was talking about some people tend to measure time by the clock and others measure it by events. And I thought, gee, the event people sound like ADHDers to me.
They would be,
because she was saying that everything's kind of connected and you just sort of move from one thing to the next based on how you feel or whatever it is. And I can, to me that makes sense in terms of how ADHDers experience their world and time.
Yes.
Versus the rest of us are like, okay, what's happening next? And then what? And then what? And then what?
It's a common. So I was thinking a couple of my clients that popped into my head that they can often, if they've gone out drinking, say on a Saturday night, they'll often get a lot of anxiety the next day as they reflect on, were they too much? What did I say? Was I inappropriate in any way? And they really just agonise over what the night was like.
Yeah, and that's really common, but it's common even if they haven't been drinking to really, ruminate and worry, have I said anything wrong, even if they've never ever said anything wrong, because I think there's a combination there between obsessiveness, so obsessive thinking, and their RSD stuff.
Yeah. And so again, I'm even thinking, gosh, that's why families and partners should know all of these things, because if you've got a partner that, is going on and on about a social interaction they had, and you're thinking, what's going on? Like, you were fine. Yeah. You're not going to understand. But if you have all this information, you can know what their brain is like, what they're struggling with, you can support them. Gosh, they really struggle, don't they? Like, in those different ways.
Well, that's right, because they're having to live in a neurotypical world. I often think that the way that ADHDers, would probably, this is me speaking for them, but as a society, wouldn't it be great if ADHDers could just go off and be in nature, because they, they thrive in nature and they love animals. This is another thing, is that ADHDers tend to love animals, not all ADHDers. But it'd be great for them to just be chilling, following their own rhymthms. And then when there's a crisis or we need innovation, we need something to be invented, come on, guys, come on. And then they would just work nonstop for like 3 or 4 days, get the job done. It'd be awesome. And then off they go again, to restore. And
but
just
what you're describing there, because I was trying to think of how do we get to, like, we're a self-care podcast, right? Like, the whole premise of what we do is around taking good care of yourself. And a lot of the things that you've described today is like negative emotions, and shame was a big one. And I think other people in their world understanding what's going on would be a big part of it. Yeah. But for them, for the individual to understand, okay, I'm feeling shame because of this, and then taking it to that self-care level of going, right, here's some things that I can do to help me through this shame. And what you just discussed there, I mean, we run a retreat out in Chittering, which is just nestled in the bush. This is not an ad for the retreat. Yeah. What I'm saying is, if you're listening to this and you're resonating, is the next step, and I don't know, I'm the one person who's not in your world of psychology. But can they start implementing changes in their life to go, right, here's all the things I know about what's going on and how I am and how I act and how I respond. How do I get self-care into this? Does that make sense?
Yeah,
I sort of rambled.
Absolutely.
And can I just say, in terms of my dad, when he was sort of self-recognising that, hey, these are the things that I can see myself with, it really changed the way he saw himself, and I could hear the emotion in his voice when he was telling me that. And I said to him, Dad, go back through in your childhood and reflect on all the times when you were told you were too much, or you were told this and this, and have that compassion for that little friend.
Compassion is the word I think I was rambling around trying to find, is that self-compassion.
Yeah.
That's a lot of what the work that I do with people is around self-compassion in response to the shame, but also learning how to identify emotions, interpret them, and not be overwhelmed by them, and then soothe them, and then listen to what they were trying to say, that's helpful as well. Yeah. But self-compassion is a massive component. I think it is for everybody, but particularly for ADHDers. Yeah. And you're right, going back through your life, this is a natural thing that people do once they notice, or they become aware that they're ADHDers, whether or not they're diagnosed formally or not, is they start to make sense. And so it's really common to have big feelings about that as well.
Yeah, to change how you see your childhood even, because you're going, wow, I wasn't that naughty kid, or I wasn't that one that didn't shut up, or whatever the label had been for them, the one that couldn't focus in class or whatever it might be. Yeah, I was really surprised even just with my dad and hearing his, sort of take on it a little bit. So, I can imagine. I mean,
think that really validated a lot of stuff for him, do you reckon?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, gosh, he's nearly 80. So it's so funny, isn't it, that, at any age, because people always say about, is it too late for this and too late for that? And funny enough, your mum actually said to him, we just went down south and he lives down south, and she said, oh, but would you bother getting it diagnosed now? Would you? And he said, yeah, which actually surprised me. But I think he just wanted to, again, have that validation. for him. It was important.
Yeah, some people, they don't want to take medication, but they just want that validation that, yes, this is a real thing and it's not just me.
And in my head.
Well, a lot of people feel like it's an excuse.
Yes, and I think people thinking they're thinking it's an excuse. That's why I can't do the dishes, or that's why I can't get to the washing. Yeah. But that's why I sent your podcast out to everybody, because I was like, "Do you hear that dopamine bit? You hear that bit?" And again, for all the clients I'd seen, for years, where I didn't know that was a thing, and I'm working in marriage counsellors, and I'm trying to work out systems. And if she's overwhelmed with that bench, can we give her something else? And just what can you own so that he can pick up the rest of the things? And I was flying blind, wasn't really knowing. Or even when you were saying about the going to sleep late because that's their quiet time of the day. I had this couple and they kept going to bed really, really late, and they were pregnant. And I'm like, you can't keep doing this. You're going to be up early. You're going to... And they didn't change their habits. And I just thought they just weren't putting in place
that's right.
the systems or the whatever. And now it makes so much sense to me that that's what it was for them. But it caused so much issues because no one wants to get up for the baby in the morning.
No.
And like you said about the snoozing through the alarms, that's kind of like the crying baby. Yeah, I'll get up in a minute. It caused heaps of issues. But now I realise, gosh, they were just struggling, in that way.
Yeah.
So if people have been listening and have not been diagnosed but think, oh, okay, a lot of this resonated, what's the first step that they would take?
If they want to get diagnosed formally, they need to go through their GP. Here in Australia, they need to go through their GP and get a referral to, if they're adults, they need to go and see a psychiatrist who specialises in ADHD assessments. Not all psychiatrists will do that, so you need to be very careful and make sure that you are booked in to see somebody who does, because otherwise that's a lot of money and time.
Yeah.
At the moment, wait times are very long.
Doesn't surprise me.
They're years.
Yeah.
Years?
Can be.
Well, not here, but I think in some countries it can be. But it's a long time. Like I think at the moment in some places it's like 9-10 months. They're not all like that. Okay. But also there's online psychiatrists as well, and you seem to be able to get in sooner with online psychiatrists. So basically you need to go and see your GP. I always think that it's helpful to do a screener, like an ADHD screener, to take it to the GP. And so if you look up ASRS V1.1.
That's catchy.
It's catchy. That's just the abbreviated version of it. That is the official one that just goes according to the diagnostic criteria. And if you take that to your GP, then at least the GP knows, because they don't know, because many people are so good at masking that GPs would never dream that they're ADHD'ers. I also, on that point, would say if your GP sort of rolls their eyes or you detect in some way that they're not happy with you asking for a referral, I just recommend that you persist and just sort of you'll feel rejected and it will be painful, but just persist. Because a lot of people, if it turns out you have ADHD, a lot of people benefit from taking the medication. Not everyone does. I think the statistics show that 80% of ADHDers benefit from taking stimulant medication. To me, apart from the validation, like with your dad, to me that'd be the only reason to get a formal diagnosis. It's a lot of money, it's a lot of time. The medication itself is not expensive, but then you're sort of locked in. You have to keep seeing the psychiatrist every year.
And there's different types of medication, isn't there?
There are different types of medication. Some, so there's stimulant medication, and most people will have heard of dexamphetamine or Ritalin, and they're basically the two types of stimulant medication. And then there's long-acting versions of that. So people will have heard of Vyvanse, that's the long-acting dexamphetamine, and Concerta is the long-acting Ritalin. And psychiatrists won't know which one is the right one for you. So it takes some time to trial which ones and what dosage, etc. Some people sort of snag it on the first attempt. Others might. I would recommend that people just, if you're interested in medication and the first one doesn't work for you, just persist, because some people try one and say, well, that didn't work, and then they give up. But a lot of people are helped significantly. It's not everything. It doesn't help you clean your house. It doesn't help with organisation, time management, prioritising. does tend to help people with emotional regulation, which is good, focus and attention, even getting started on things that are normally difficult to get started
One of my
on.
clients said that she'd been waiting to take medication because she'd had 2 babies in the time she'd been diagnosed. So when she finally had it, she said that I think her husband asked her to go and get something out the garage, and she said she just did it. And she said, I came back and I just did it. And she said it was easy. I didn't overthink it. She said normally she would have stopped on the way. She actually would have resented him for asking in the first place. But she told me this whole story about getting this one thing from the garage and just how easy it was and how surprising that was, that it was so easy.
Well, that's another good illustration, isn't it, of how hard ADHDers are working every day just to get the boring stuff done. It's always the boring stuff that is the hardest for ADHDers.
Yeah, that particular client, she used to really struggle with thinking she was lazy or unmotivated and things. And again, like we were saying about the creative stuff, she's the most thoughtful, beautiful, lovely friend that would go above and beyond for anybody, well, even strangers really. But but that was what the other side of it was, the struggle of just those tasks.
Absolutely.
And how does the medicate, because something from the retreat popped into my mind where I heard the beautiful lady on our retreat who has ADHD saying that when she takes medication, she could just go to sleep. Which sort of blows my mind, because I know that, someone who doesn't have it, like that would keep them up for hours and hours. What is it about the brain that
I actually don't know, but a lot of ADHD brains are just like, what do you call it, like paradoxical, so they have the opposite experience of medication. Not all medications, but she's not typical. Like, there are ADHDers who can do that, and there's a lot of ADHDers who will struggle to go to sleep when they're on stimulant medication.
Right, okay. Yeah. So it's not a generalisation.
It's not a generalisation,
right. Okay.
No. If you're an ADHDer who can go to sleep after a strong espresso, then you're probably likely to be like her.
Right.
Yeah, because caffeine is a stimulant.
Yeah, wow.
Beautiful.
That's so interesting.
I had one last question, which was, and I want to get it's highly sensitive person.
Oh, yes, yeah.
Because you talked about that at the very, very, very beginning, and then we didn't really ever
we didn't get to
come back to it.
Yeah.
And I think you classify yourself as HSP.
Yep.
So I figured you're here, we should ask you about it.
Yeah.
Like what is it? What is the difference? And I guess what do you struggle with? Because the one thing I did pick up that you mentioned is strange environments. I'm like, wow, you just walked into like one of the weirdest environments going around. We've converted our lounge room into a podcast studio. Like, how did you cope with that?
I'm good with coping with it. It just will use up a lot of my energy.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I call it the high sensitivity trait because I don't like the term highly sensitive person. But the high sensitivity trait has been studied for decades, and again, it wasn't introduced to me at all in my 6 years of university. 15 to 20% of the population have this trait, so it's a
no
lot.
one's talking about it.
No one's talking about it. And there's multiple sort of features of it, but it tends to be that we will be so aware of our social environment, and we're so affected by our social environment that's one of the main things. So our brain will be doing a lot more with the information coming in, especially people's facial expressions, tones of voice, etc., body language. So someone who's an HSP in a staff meeting will know exactly how everybody is feeling, and will just understand what everybody needs and what they don't need, and will never, in my experience, will never put anyone on the spot or make them feel bad because they're just so aware. So their whole focus almost is on everybody else. That is just their natural inclination. And so much research has been done. So some of your listeners might know, they might have heard of dandelion children versus orchid children. So that's so the orchid kids are the highly sensitive kids. Another concept, which is differential susceptibility, which is a mouthful, but that's what I think is fascinating about HSPs, is that so lots and lots of studies have gone into understanding this. If you have this trait, in a really positive environment. So think of a classroom environment that has a beautiful teacher and, everything is just safe and loving and kind. Those kids will be the class leader. They're the popular kids. They'll be academically, thriving. But in a really stressful or toxic or awful environment, even if the teacher is just picking on one or two children and it's not them, then they're much more likely to suffer more than the other kids. And it's fascinating, in all these different environments and contexts, the graphs look the same. So people who are not highly sensitive don't really get affected that much by their social environment, whereas a highly sensitive person will be hugely affected by it.
Oh, every time you talk, someone pops into my head.
Oh, yeah.
Just because all the things I never would have put together,
No.
I'm thinking,
Well, that's a lot of therapy clients are highly sensitive people because they're so affected by negative environments. But stress, an anxious society, which we have at the moment, are much more likely to be affected by that. So they will be more anxious, they'll be more depressed than other people will in response to their social environment. Other people, it's just it's not water off a duck's back, but...
So with those clients, would you be working towards getting them really clear on what their emotional state is so that when they're going into these environments, they can see how they're being pulled out of their centre or they're being more impacted by what's around them, so they kind of know a little bit more about what's theirs and what's someone else's to not take on?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes, really what I do oftentimes is they tend to be self-sacrifices. And so there'll be whole relational dynamics. There'll be, I don't like the term codependent, but, there's sort of oftentimes in relationships where they're the giver, and they get nothing back. And so we're working on that. And we're working on them learning they don't even know what they think or what they feel or what they want. They don't know what they need. Yeah. They know what everybody else does, but they don't know what they do. So that's oftentimes what we will start on.
Putting the attention back inwards. Yeah. That makes sense.
I often say when you're an HSP, you walk through the world asking yourself what's the right thing to do all the time. Wow. For you and you and you, and what should I say and what should I do? And so we try and flip that to what's the right thing for me. Yeah. So that's the work that we often do. Together.
And how do you go with yourself?
Yeah, well, I've learnt to do that for myself.
Okay.
Yeah, I had to learn to do that.
Right.
Yeah. But, the beautiful thing about HSPs is they are my favourite clients because it's a positive environment, so they just they thrive. Right. Yeah. And so, but then it's very heartbreaking because then they don't need to see me anymore.
Do yourself out of a job. Yeah.
That's right, exactly.
Yeah. But how lovely. They are. I can imagine how beautiful they are as a client population to work with for all that heart and all that energy. And
Well, I don't know that they've got more heart than other people, but they just learn, they just do the work between the sessions. Right. They learn very quickly in a positive environment. They just respond, more than other people do. Yeah.
How beautiful.
Yeah.
I was going to wrap it up.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like we've covered heaps. That was amazing. Thank you so much. Now, usually when we have guests on, they might have a book to plug or whatever, but when I emailed you, you're just like, I just want to spread the word.
And I love that you're spreading the word because I'm spreading your word.
But if there's any, do you want me to, do you have a social media that you want people to follow you on? I don't think you do.
I'm starting an online community at the start of next year, but that's not up and running yet.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
But if people want to look me up, they can sign up for the newsletter where I just tell people what's coming up.
Definitely.
Perfect. Where can they do that?
At janellebookerpsychology.com.au.
Perfect. I'll put a link in the description.
And what location are you in for your practice?
I'm in Swanbourne.
Beautiful.
Yeah, I knew it was a long drive.
Yeah.
Beautiful spot.
I was actually nervous to put the address because we're miles from anywhere.
Yeah. But it's lovely up here.
Yeah,
it's
it is nice. Yeah, it's very like a family-friendly sort of a place.
Yeah.
It's nice. Well, thank you. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
It's an absolute pleasure.
Yeah, for sharing your knowledge with everyone. I'm sure there's going to be lots of people who give us feedback about this episode. So thank you so much.
You're welcome.
And Tracy, I don't think we have anything to plug because our retreats are done for the year. All I would say is we do have plans to do some meetups at the beach, maybe do some one-off breathworks. So if you don't follow Tracy on social media, it's at tracyquayle.therapy. And jump on the mailing list, because that's where we email details about events, and you can do that at tracyquayle.com. Is that everything?
I think so.
All right. Thanks again, Janelle.
Thanks, Janelle.
Welcome.
All right. Bye.
Bye.